Welcome to Worlds Cooldown presented by State Farm. I'm La Tigress here to host you for the day, and after a final clashing between an LCS and OPL team, I am that much more excited to have Mark Z and Spawn joining me to run through all of the news that's fit to print on day 4. And Spawn, it has been quite an emotional day for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely has. And before we get any further into this cooldown show, Mark, we need to establish some basic housekeeping rules.
Okay.
This is a good day for Oceania. There will be no name calling. There will be no pointing out the fact that our mid laner just got blasted by Jensen again. And we will be overall optimistic about what has happened for the OPL today because Legacy has done the whole region proud.
He says with pleading in his voice to Mark.
I mean, I can't promise once the replay starts later on. I might not be able to hold back completely, but overall, I agree that, yeah, this is actually an incredible performance for the region, and that's the more important thing to keep in mind is the broader picture than just that last game's impression.
And for anybody that might be waking up for the first time, being that it's pretty early in the AM for our NA residents, we will take a look at the standings and how everything has shook out, because today we ended Group A's round robin with 2 more tiebreakers, just like yesterday as well. We'll be sending Team Liquid directly into the group stage and have bid farewell to INTZ, but many fights put up by these teams straight in the middle. Legacy, as Spawn just mentioned, having an admirable performance earlier on and being put to the test later.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do say goodbye to the CBLOL representatives, but they were able to pick up a key win that forced us into these tiebreaker scenarios. But the big surprise to me is the fact that Mad Lions are actually the 4th place team now, and they will lose side selection going into their head-to-head match against Supermassive.
Yeah, I mean, mirrored Group B in a lot of ways. One of the, quote-unquote major region teams at number 1 and the other one at number 4 having to play a tiebreaker to secure it. Like you said, INTZ is the only team who actually beat Team Liquid, which is kind of weird that the one team going home is the only team that was able to take down the first place team. But definitely a really interesting day, and I think the most interesting play-ins group stage we've ever seen.
It was very strange looking at the top, and at that point in time, Team Liquid being 3-0 and INTZ being 0-3, and the result that happened after. And it may have been a surprise to the players and the staff as well. Lucky for us, we get to unveil some of that knowledge lore, getting some words from Coach Jat.
Thank you, Jat, for joining me. Congrats on topping your group here in play-ins.
Whew, thank you. It's definitely a suspenseful format, so I'm really glad we get to go through the group stage now.
Yeah, I mean, you had a convincing run, so
to us.
Yeah.
Apologies for that. Luckily for us, we have both of you to get some of the additional insight into the game coming up, because Team Liquid ended up having to play 3 straight matches today. Not back-to-back, but with a tiebreaker that resulted in the end here.
Yeah, I mean, Jat seems to have rage quit the interview. It was a long day for them, probably a little stressful. That the fact that they dropped that game and suddenly they have to worry about Legacy taking them down, losing that first seed, and then you'd have to have played in the actual knockout stage. So maybe that's what it was. Jat was just was like, you know what, I can't do this interview. Spike the mic and get out of there.
First time I've ever seen the man lost for words. I just love, by the way, that we have a system on who goes next, because there's this 1.5 second delay, and both Mark and I, after that interview, are spamming the go next button to make our lame Jat jokes first on broadcast.
What's yours? Was that?
Mine was going to be first time lost for words, right? Because you could never get him to shut up as a commentator. So, as a coach, it's a little bit different now.
I thought that sigh of relief was a little too big of a sigh. Maybe got too relaxed after that. But we're here to kind of cool things down. It is our time to reflect upon the day. So let's take a look at Team Liquid's performance overall, because Mark, at the top of it, they were looking like they were going to go 4-0. But in the end, we saw some upsets from multiple teams.
Yeah, I mean, the INTZ upset was one where they experimented a little bit more with their draft than we had seen so far in play, and for the most part has been bread and butter champion, so to speak, with small adaptations like slotting the Twitch in. But the one INTZ game was a bigger departure, didn't work for them, and then they went back to their basics. And overall, though, I think it went to chalk. Probably the only thing in Group A that you can say did in a lot of ways. So I think TL is going to feel pretty happy about their performance overall.
And I think that when you have a look at how TL performed, like they had really solid foundations of their play. They were setting up for objectives really well. They close cleanly when they do have the lead. Of course, we are playing a best of one format with outside selection and things like that. So you can drop a game here or there. But I think what was impressive is if you eyeball test the games, they were playing out the way that you would expect the draft to actually go, or better for Team Liquid. And we were speaking about the fact that, maybe this is the only team that we would expect to be able to, we always used to say when a team from a major region comes in from a team against a minor region, it's all about the laning phase, blasting them, quick snowballs. Well, this Worlds has not been about that at all, apart from Team Liquid games. They've looked far and away the best laners in the group, and they have been able to translate that to smooth leads.
Yeah, that's very... Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, that's the thing that's interesting is like Team Liquid aside, I would say that this is the most upset focused like play-in stage we've ever seen at Worlds, and it reminds me a lot of 2018 group stage of the main event, where teams were just losing all over the place. Korea doesn't get out of groups, or they get one team out of groups, but then they lose in quarterfinals, no teams in semis. North America makes their first one. That's how this feels in a lot of ways. It's a bit of a watershed moment, I think, for play-ins and all these minor region teams being able to find huge upsets and, put the major region 4 seeds at the 4th spot in groups, which is absolutely insane coming in. I don't think anyone would have predicted this.
Yeah, and I also think that this is the first one where individual players have done a terrific job of like showcasing like their individual skills to the highest level. You think of players even like Jose Diodo, and as well as like players like Tay had like flashes of those brilliant moments where I don't think that, like, looking back in my casting history, I've never really seen a player in a big stage game like have that when you're only winning, one game maybe in your group. So I think that not only were there upsets, but there were individual players that like showed up to a further extent that I'd seen in the past and showed that maybe that gap is finally closing on the individual skill level, which I think is pretty big for these other regions.
Yeah, let's dive a bit deeper into that, because if we're looking at what's happened in play-in so far, both Group A and Group B did force 2 tiebreakers each. Nobody went undefeated throughout this entire process, and we're talking about how even the play styles are different than we may have expected. We're seeing upsets against major regions. Spawn, why do you think that has resulted in this being such a competitive play-ins experience?
Well, as I said, like mainly the thing that play-ins teams used to try and do is they used to come in, try and blitz, get early game objective leads, and then be able to close the game out quickly, because you had to hit these bigger regions fast and kind of put them on the back foot. But what we've actually seen this play-ins is that the individual skill gap isn't there. So you can drag them late. You can out-team fight them with better compositions. We're seeing things like Graves, Orianna, Ornn shoot up in priority. And I think this is the first time that the play-in regions teams have just said, you know what? To hell with trying to play this weird, wacky, cheese-centric, early game focused team. Like, if we do have some surprises, like Orianna bot or, Swain coming in, let's still play our surprises, the set Mitt from Tally, for example. But let's not go all in on that fast, aggressive, hit them once and hope it lands playstyle. Let's give ourselves a fighting chance late game. And we've seen more often than not, these teams are able to win out on the late game fights.
Yeah, I think the other thing to keep in mind too is like this is a crazy year for the entire world, not just in the league scene. So I think this could have been a good moment for the minor region teams to come in and have the most level playing field that they ever had, because I feel like one thing that happens over the course of the years, the major regions get more opportunities. They have, and a lot of times, better infrastructure and these kinds of things. And this helped kind of set that down. So like what Spawn is saying is, like with the individual skill gaps, there's not lane kingdoms all over the place. They're actually going even, heading into mid game even, and then actually out team fighting. And I thought that was a really impressive thing out of them. And I'm hoping going forward, the same way after the 2018 group stage happened, it's not really recovered. It's not like Korea domination again. I'm hoping the same thing happens in the future now after this one, that the minor region teams can see this and say, yeah, we can go toe-to-toe with them playing our own styles.
And what region did that in full effect today? It was the OPL. Legacy really being able to make a statement here. And Spawn, when we were talking in the green room, you were noting a lot of the community's reaction as well, and others starting to back behind these players and seeing their potential.
Yeah, and this has been a huge day for Oceania in general. This is the first time that, the region that I proudly represent has been able to take down a major region in being able to take down, Mad Lions from Europe, as well as the fact that our old rivals Turkey, who have had the leg up on us for probably 4 years now, will finally able to humble them as well in a best of one. And I've seen pro players from Valorant to Counter-Strike to just completely different games all rallying behind the region. I was making the joke Twitter's going wild, we're trending in Australia. This has honestly been it's one of those surreal moments to me. I'm just so proud. This is a team that actually beat my own team to make it to Worlds, right? But I feel like the whole region has done the right thing. They've finally rallied behind the boys, and they're just giving them so much love. And coming second in a play-ins group, honestly, I can't wipe the smile off my face. I said to the guys jokingly, it's crazy that they've made the world final for OSA best of one, because that's what it felt like to me, right? This was definitely a moment where we could make a splash. Unfortunately, we fell short, but now we get to prepare for either Rainbow 7 or LGD. And I just shout out to the whole of the Legacy organization, because that was an amazing day.
Yeah, we were joking as well about where does this land on Spawn's best days of his life? Children being born, saying "I love you, Dad" for the first time. Where's this on Proud Papa Spawn's best life days?
Unfortunately, it's second now because they didn't win that game. Birth of Jasper still first, but this is a close second.
If they beat Team Liquid, then it was more important. Okay.
I can confirm that was the only thing standing between it being the top for the day. Oh man! But one thing also, Spawn, you've mentioned before the fact that the region itself has underwent changes, players switching teams, going to other regions. Does it add anything to this experience, being that it feels like you were fighting through in some ways what was kind of difficult to determine how this would go for the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when in 2019 we felt like we had the best Oceanic teams ever, and then 12 of the players don't come back to your region. Only 22 players played on those teams, right? A lot of them went to Golden Guardians. I'm looking at you, Raz and Anero. You really just took all the boys overseas. But King went to Cloud9 Academy with Fudge. Triple went over to FLICKR Academy. You got FBI Ryoma right now playing in the LCS, and you have Destiny going to LEC as well. Just a lot of players went everywhere. And a lot of Oceanic fans said, well, that's it. We've missed our opportunity. Where are the people coming in to fill those shoes? But you only have to look as far as people like Isles. This is a brand new kid coming into the OPL. This is his first year of competitive. And his composure on stage has just been insane. He's had a couple of whoopsies plays, but I think overall the level that he's brought has been super impressive. And it's kind of given everyone in OS that wake up moment of holy crap, we are good enough to be able to do this. And we do have that next generation of players coming through. So Legacy certainly trailblazing for the whole region right now.
I think this has given a good opportunity for everyone to sip on those last bits of coffee. Now I want to give them that extra slap in the cheeks to wake up. And I'm going to do the same for you guys, putting you both in the hot seat for some lightning round analysis. Spawn, you've done this once before, throwing you a few questions. You got to give me that gut reaction. Not a lot of time to think about it. So you'll get to sit back for a moment. Mark, are you ready to be the first up?
We'll find out.
Yeah, whether you're ready or not, it's happening right now. So 3, 2, 1. First question to you. Favorite champ to watch?
Oh, Wukong. Always has been, always will be, except, well, I guess it's only really this year. But, I was so disappointed North America was slow to pick it up. And then it's still seeing play and actually looking decent in all the games that I've seen it so far in play-ins. It's a playmaker in the top lane. It can be a carry. It can also play weak side, too. I just love the champ. And it's still getting counter picks. And I'm wondering how far people are willing to blind it, because some people were blinding it today.
All right. Biggest head scratcher of the day.
Is this still me?
Yeah, it's still you.
Oh.
It's boom, 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 boom.
Oh, biggest head scratcher of the day. TL losing to INTZ. I am convinced that was them trying to knock out Mad through a tiebreaker situation, because otherwise I'm like, what? How is this the same team that I watched later? I don't know.
All right. Favorite YouTube series or movie?
The Blame Game. My own show. It's a real travesty. I stopped making it 5 years ago.
Best play from today?
Ooh, best play from today.
Go, 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 go. No thinking. Go. You got to give it to me.
I'll just say a Jensen play. I don't know.
Jensen play. Best drafting team?
Best drafting team?
Mm-hmm.
These are like hard ones where like I want to like review. This is not like, hey,
go
what's your
for it,
favorite
Mark.
sandwich? I don't know. I'll just go Team Liquid again. Minus that, like even their experimental draft wasn't that bad. They're standard. I know it might not be the sexiest drafts, but they're good.
NA bias.
NA bias, yes, obviously. It's not just because they were the most recent team to play, and you're asking me these questions. And I'm just saying the forefront of my mind.
That's why it's a gut reaction, Mark, and this is the best gut reaction. What is 3,275 times 1,221?
Give me 1 second. Say that again. 3,000.
3,275 times 1,221. Quick maths.
300.
we always like to ask.
No, wait. 3,343,775.
I don't actually know the answer, so I don't.
How could you guys not be ready? Huh? Production team? What are we doing here?
I wasn't expecting you to give a real answer to begin with, so props to you for that.
I mean, I definitely did not open up another tab and then search that in Google.
Taking advantage of not being side by side here, Mark. That's a cheat. Spawn, are you going to be true and honest in your gut reactions, or are you going to try and pull some ish on me like Mark here?
The funny thing is I was like, the first time I played this game, I was like, wow, I was so terrible at that. Then Raz did it, and it was just butter smooth, like all things that Raz does. But I'm so glad I'm now here with my good friend Mark Zed, because I surely cannot be that hesitant in the answers that I give.
It could be that I wasn't paying attention when someone explained the segment to me, or it was not properly explained, because I did not know lightning round meant I just went 10 times in a row.
Lightning.
Yeah. Now I know.
It was grease lightning for you. You slid down a little bit towards the end. Spawn, are you going to be as clean as Raz then? So it feels like you put Mark at the bottom bar and Raz right there at the top. Are you somewhere in the middle, or are you looking to jump above that and above your son's birth, as we are now putting everything into context?
No, I'm happy to be the Mark Raz sandwich. I'm the meat between those two well-breaded men. That's what I'm saying.
Sandwich talk, yo. All right, I got him for you, Spawn. Here we go.
Huh?
Most impressive game performance.
Legacy versus Mad.
Favorite book.
Magician by Raymond E. Feist.
Least favorite champion to watch.
Oof. Vel'Koz.
That champion power you'd want in real life.
Akali.
All right. Is this the most competitive play-in stage?
Yes.
Cool. Why Akali? What are your plans?
I don't know. She she's parkour ninja, can flip around stuff. She has good precision on her throws, and she can go invisible, which I feel like could be useful on segments like this when I don't have a good answer.
But I mean, this is such a murder-focused skill set. TF can port around the world. You know, in terms of day-to-day living, what are you doing in your day-to-day where you're I need to be better at killing people?
Her skill set is very specific, Spawn.
The thing is I would stuff a TF ult up and just end up in an ocean and then have a 90-second cooldown where I couldn't move again. So I'm not confident in my TF skills.
That's true.
Spawn is actually Liam Neeson, and he's just trying to make himself that much stronger. Lucky for us, though, we were able to work through some of the technical difficulties we had earlier. So let's check in with Lore and Jat.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Jad, for joining me. Congrats on topping your group here in play-ins.
Thank you. It's definitely a suspenseful format, so I'm really glad we get to go through the group stage now.
Yeah, I mean, you had a convincing run so far, really. Any first impression on your team's success in play-ins?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of how they responded after having such a disappointing end in LCS, right? We lost 2 best-of-5s in a row before coming here. And I think today as well, even though this was incredibly stressful, right? We were 3-0, and then we had to play INTZ to close it out. And none of us were taking it lightly. We talked about, the kaboom of past years and how never count a Brazilian team out in tournament. And then we lost anyway, right? So we had to play this decisive tiebreaker. And I think if we lost, it would have been, really punishing for us, and we would have had to work on our mental to get into best of 5s. But I think because we won, especially in this fashion, I think this is just the best practice we can get for group stage, because if you think about the way Worlds group stages always go, it's a day that you can almost never prepare for, right? The whole year you play these single round robin best of ones. You play one game a day or you play a best of 5. And the second week of group stage, you have to play 3 games on the same day against 3 different opponents. The fact that we actually got practice against that is the best thing that could happen to us. So all the adversity we've gone through so far, through losing best of 5s, getting 3rd seed, having to go through play-in, because it worked out and we're going to group stage as if nothing happened, now we get that extra practice that other teams didn't get. So I'm actually really looking forward to groups.
Yeah, we're also looking forward to it. But I mean, before that, I know that I've been talking to Broxa about the prep. This is also a first time for you as a coach here at Worlds. So can you tell me about what you did with the coaching staff to ensure that the players would be ready and on top form here?
Yeah, we have a ton of resources at our disposal with Team Liquid. We have our entire academy coaching staff also assisting with scouting reports. So we had detailed scouting reports about all of our play-ins opponents done multiple days before the play-in started. So we could go into every game with a strong understanding of their play style, with a strong understanding of how we can maneuver our pick and ban to give us the best advantage. And I'm just happy with everyone's performance all around.
Now, last question. Before tossing back to Cooldown, you will be drafted in either Group A or Group B. Is there anything you would like to say to your former colleagues about what we should expect about play-ins, about Team Liquid here in group stage? Sorry.
I'm going to say don't count us out no matter what group we go into.
Yes, that's what we like to hear. Jat, thank you very much for the interview and good luck for the next stage.
Thanks.
And Le Tigress, back to you.
Thank you, Laura. Great to hear that perspective from Jat, particularly the fact that the team did so much prep on the play-in teams, considering how little knowledge a lot of times that people have of them with the lack of experience spawn. Is that one of the things that you have to overcome most when going into play-ins?
Yeah, potentially. But I think what's actually happened is there is a lot of cross-pollination between, I think, a lot of assistant coaching staff and stuff like that is starting to crop up in, LCS and LEC. So you actually have a lot of back channels to work. And the one thing I will say about the coaches that I've experienced in the LCS and LEC is they're always willing to have that conversation. So they open a lot of doors when the shoe's on the other foot and they're like, wow, this team that I've never heard anything about with 3 players that I've never heard anything about, how do I actually play against this? And I'm sure that Jat especially, he knocks on 7 out of 8 OPL coaches' doors and they open up the legacy playbook for him just to get to have a conversation with Jat. So not saying there was anything underhanded going on there, but those bans did look really good as the tournament started progressing a little bit further.
Trying to gather as much information as quickly as possible when you're going into something like Worlds. And today we've already asked Mark to do some quick maths. I think it's time for us to look at some of the quick moves that we have seen from the players today in our Every Second Counts powered by Cisco. Specifically, let's go ahead and admire what we saw from Raze earlier on the side of Legacy.
Yeah, this was a super sick Jhin snipe. First, going in, securing the Baron, Dragon, and then the enemy team's like, all right, we gotta get out of here, shifts over the wall, and then the timing on that shot to get the kill was actually super impressive to me. And there's the body block going on. I thought that was a pretty top-tier calculation out of the Osh bot laner.
Yeah, and Raze is one of those players that he's been known for his Jhin for such a long time. When he was first brought into the original Chiefs lineup, he could play 2 champions. He could play Caitlyn and Jhin, and it's great to see that despite all the years have gone by, he still holds on to those champions that are true to his heart.
Yeah, holding on to them, some quick thought process from him in that play. And now we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we will have more Worlds Cooldown, jumping into some deeper dives on the players and the games that we witnessed today. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Worlds Cooldown presented by State Farm. For anybody that missed today's festivities, do not worry, we've got you covered. If you haven't quite woken up yet, we will be recapping every single game, starting with all of those leading up to tiebreakers. We'll put 60 seconds on the clock, and our analysts will break it all down for you in Was Sleeping Didn't Watch. Mark, you ready for game number 1? We've got Supermassive versus Team Liquid.
All right, so this was the first game of the day. This was a pretty big one because both were 2-0 heading into this, and Team Liquid had a pretty good game, all things considered. They got their submarine Twitch comp, which is something that hasn't been seen for quite a while, but was super potent back in the day. In Armand, when I was talking about some of these Wukongs who were popping off, I'm talking about Armand. He was kind of the 1v9 carry who was keeping this game close for Supermassive. It definitely was not a total like Team Liquid stomp or anything like that. But they were able to get enough of these kind of picks in the mid lane, just keep opening up on the more immobile members of the Supermassive lineup, and they were able to run away with the game after that.
Every single time I see Team Liquid play, I just continue to be impressed by Jensen and Core JJ. These two players look to be on the exact same page. From what I've heard from behind the scenes, they're both really vocal about how they like to play the game, and they seem to have complete alignment at the moment. Jensen in the interview was shocked that he was the first player that had won on the Silas, and when you have a look at how he played the champion, you understand exactly why, because he popped off and carried.
All right, it's going to set it better. Game number 2, we've got Mad Lions versus Legacy. Spawn, that was major victory for you.
Yeah, it certainly was. And in Pick Ban, you had one team that took their champions all out of order and out of whack. And then Legacy just all selected their own champions. And you thought, you know what? What an organized, well-coordinated, put-together unit. And that's exactly what they took onto Summoner's Rift. Despite Telly getting destroyed on wave number 1, the rest of the fight looked pretty good for Legacy. They started pretty rough, as I mentioned, but then Raze started to get going, the perfect player from Oceania. Topoon soon joined in as well, and Tally's flanking potential on this Galio, it looked almost perfection.
And this is where a lot of people were starting to get really worried about Mad Lions. This was not a great start to the day for them. And it was a little back and forth, but they ended up having a lot of good engages. Like you said, Tally was kind of the huge carry for them, I think, in a lot of the team fights, finding these good flanks and opportunities onto the back line. And that was the most impressive thing. And I think Mad Lions still has a lot of work to do to figure out exactly what they want to do heading into this best of 5 stage, because it doesn't seem like much is working for them. What was supposed to be a really strong, mid-jungle 2v2 situation isn't quite there, and Arome still has some work to figure out.
This wasn't the first upset of the day. We had game number 3, INTZ taking down Team Liquid.
And this game was just 2 early kills for INTZ that was able to start everything on the snowball. You can see Shinny running into the jungle there. However, in typical Team Liquid fashion, they were certainly able to battle their way back into this game. Once again, incredibly impressed with how Jensen is playing League of Legends at the moment. Once again, the synergy between him and Core JJ, as displayed in this clip, just seems to be reaching new heights towards this play-in stage. However, all good things must come to an end.
Yeah.
And in much the same way that we were talking about earlier, the Renekton didn't really work out, Mark, and maybe a little bit of a wonky draft considering what TL's strengths are.
Yeah, this is a bit of an experimentation. The Lilia has also been performing quite poorly at Worlds so far, and I think this shows some of the concerns people might have about Team Liquid come group stage. How are they going to adapt with the new picks and stuff? Because when they're on their champs, they look incredible. When they're off them, these upsets can happen. So definitely a bit of a sketch situation, and it forced a lot of the tiebreakers that happened today, INTZ making this all happen.
In game number 4, Legacy also chose to stick with their comfort picks versus Supermassive.
And this is another huge W for Legacy. You heard Spawn talking about some of the rivalries with Supermassive. This was a pretty dominating game. There's a bit of a hiccup right in the beginning, and people thought, oh, they're going to lose. Their draft should be, dominating bot lane with Ezreal Karma, and they fell behind. But then come team fights, they actually played really, really well. They had that kind of funny standoff in the back of the Drake pit that they eventually went in for. But Raze put together 2 pretty decent games. The rest of the team was able to help them out quite well. Tally got a lot of those big haymakers off, and then there's that one play in the mid lane that was just super impressive out of Raze, where he was able to shift in under the mid lane inner turret and kind of take over the game. He got super fed, and he used that very well in the game.
But again, to me, it was the utility players of Legacy. This is a comp that they would run in the OPL all the time. Big beefy top laner, big beefy mid laner, Enchanter support, and Raze just playing the perfect game of League of Legends. As you mentioned, it did take him playing very well in a couple of mid lane pits, but if you're from OS, you've seen this too many times. Raze is definitely a player you can expect to carry when it counts.
And we did get to see another game from them because we did have the tiebreakers. Let's actually start off with the Legacy and Team Liquid game, determining who was going to be advancing to the group stage and who held on to that second position. Spawn, we were just talking about the draft that worked well for them against Supermassive. What were your thoughts when they came through against Team Liquid?
Yeah, this game was just a disaster because, I do think that this is a very legacy composition. When you have a look at it, it's Ornn, Kindred, Galio, and Jhin. And these are champions that they played before, but I was surprised by the Rakan. Whilst it does do okay into the Braum lane, it's certainly not something that Isles is known for. And I think that at the same time, you also have to look at what Team Liquid was able to get for themselves. And this is probably the perfect Team Liquid comp.
It's up there. I mean, I would personally like a little bit more playmaking on Core JJ, but otherwise, it's quite strong for them. And I think after the first time that they played, and Tally kind of got put down quite hard by Jensen. I think Jensen wanted an even skillier matchup, which is why I went for the Syndra. And Tally was like, all right, I'll go more utility for my team. But it allowed Brox to just run around and take over the game. That was a lot of the games that Brox looks best at. The lanes are kind of going in his favor. He can kind of just show up for them. And this is an INTZ replay.
All right.
This is the other replay. Actually, this is from the tiebreaker for Mad Lions, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah, we will.
But yeah, this was still just one of those games where it felt like it was over at 10 minutes. So you're not messing much on the replays.
What actually happened in the game as well, if you cast your mind back, is that Babip, who had been playing pretty well, thought that he had forced mid prior off a teleport back from Tally, and then thought he had bottom prior, and he went for this Scuttle Crab fight. And it was just a disaster because teleport came across for Shen while there's a huge wave at the Ornn's turret, so they can't get in here in time and make it a legitimate 5v5. This was a 4v5 where Tally already didn't have summoner spells. Brox had picked up 2 more kills. This is actually a 3-0 Grave marching into lane and just 2v1ing the bottom lane, able to pick himself up a kill. And that is going to be a familiar sight if you are a Legacy fan, because Brox had just walked between turrets and killed Legacy members 3 times in this game. And as a Broxer fan, it's really nice to see him return to form. The thing I do love about the Oceanic region, however, is we believe in fighting our way out of situations like this. We never just go down without throwing a couple of punches back. They tried their best, but ultimately Team Liquid just looked a class above in this game.
Yeah, I always respect Raze somehow always ending up on Jhin in the middle of 4 enemy team. Living the 4th bullet kill, speed up runaway dream. Didn't quite work out. That's the dream gold graph for basically every coach in the world. Just this straight up and to the right situation. And a lot of that came down to, like you said, naturally winning lane phases. You talk about the Ornn getting pushed under his turret. He was already down 20 CS. Impact was able to get a big CS lead, TP down to that play, take another early recall off, and still be up 20, 30 CS. It eventually got caught back up a little bit as they made plays around the map, but huge laning leads, and then Brox was able to run between all the lanes and pick up a lot of kills. But I'm still excited for Legacy because, to be fair, Team Liquid was the only team in the play-in stage so far who has been able to show this level of domination. The other teams that they now are looking forward to playing, potentially in LGD and Rainbow 7, have not looked anything like this. And I think that they actually have a decent chance in their upcoming best of 5.
Yeah, Legacy are still in the running to make their way into the group stage. It's also great to see the play from Broxa, considering the whole reason he was brought onto this team for international performance. There is one team we did say farewell to, and that was actually in our first tiebreaker that we experienced between Mad Lions and INTZ. Spawn, it felt like for a while, INTZ were holding on to it over representing Brazil, but then it took a turn and EU's hopes were revived.
Yeah, and when you have a look at this composition, it is a little bit wonky in my opinion from INTZ. I think the idea behind it was that Kog'Maw just gives you unlimited wave clear, very hard to dive into the center lane, and then Camille can split push forever. But that's not what we've seen really in this play-ins. We've seen 5v5 team fighting, and when you have a look at what Mad brought to the table, it's Wukong, Orianna, Ezreal. Give Mark and I a couple of those champions, we can probably 5v5 team fight on them. It's a very easy to execute composition, right? And whilst Mad did fall behind, shout out to Humanoid. I've been really harsh on Humanoid. Another person I've been really harsh on is Arome, and he gave up first blood again in this game. Just shout out to Arome for continuing to pad other people's stats. But Humanoid in this game in particular, he was just a man possessed. You could tell he didn't want to lose. He went up something crazy like 70 CS by the end of the game. He was hitting huge shockwaves, continuing to kite out. But INTZ definitely had some promising moments.
Yeah, I mean, Tay, which you kind of talked about earlier in the day, was the stud for them, was able to get that big lead on Camille. And where they started to fall behind was in some of their mid and late game team fighting decisions. They were always looking, it felt like, to engage in turn when you have this team comp with 2 poke champions that can kind of kite back And, you know, even after they got this Baron, they were trying to dive situations, and they started getting picked off in side lanes. As great as Tay had to the start of the game, his mid to late game was a lot sketchier, and he got picked on by Mad Lions. So a lot of credit to Mad, you know, not sitting back and going, oh no, we're losing, and getting scared. They were like, okay, let's go make plays in the side lane. And they made a number of those. They were able to punish a number of poor engages, and you see, you know, that shoot back up into their favor just right at the end after what was a scrappy back and forth game. And also good objective control.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Despite being so far behind, they did really have a stranglehold on those dragons. You know, I mentioned Arome kind of in a meme way, but he did absorb a lot of pressure in the top side of Summoner's Rift, and they were able to start that stacking quite early on into the game. And Tay had 2 moments that were just huge whoopsies to me. After Baron, he went and tried to take the enemy's Krugs, got caught out there, burnt his freshly purchased GA, and wasted 40 seconds of a Baron buff. And then once he teleported in, he actually corralled and cut off a mid lane choke point. They should have been able to set up to siege, but he just dove his face first in with the most questionable hook shot off the back end of a Shinny engage on the set. And, you know, those 2 plays for me were kind of the straws that broke the camel's back. It looked like INTZ were genuinely nervous playing this game. It's a little bit of a heartbreaker because, you know, I actually watched a lot of them in my prep, and I thought that they were a really fun team. So you hate to see them go out in that fashion, but at the end of the day, Mad were just certainly the better team.
And Mad were able to scrap their way into that fight, bringing it to a tiebreaker to keep themselves within contention here in the group stage. So, Mark, with considering what we just heard, Spawn saying INTZ seemed a bit nervous, Mad didn't have great performances earlier into that. They are going into best of 5. How would you contextualize what we should expect from them in those performances when fighting to get through that, to get to the group stage?
I think that they should be a little nervous because, you know, Unicorns of Love is waiting for them, and UL has been pretty good. They were contesting. There's that tiebreaker with PSG to actually get that spot. The one thing I'll say is that oftentimes in the best of 5s is where the major regions in these play-in situations start to shine even more. They sometimes drop games in the best of 1. It can be a scrappy situation. You're figuring out the Worlds meta, and that's when things are most volatile. And then you get in, and you have the better shot calling, the better macro go in your favor. I would still say I'm a little scared given their current topside issues with Shadow looking for champions that are going to be good for him this meta, Arome problems like Spawn was hitting on. I actually think their bot lane and Humanoid are pretty good and can be counted on a little bit.
Yeah, and whilst you say they're nervous about Unicorns of Love waiting for them, they've got to get through Supermassive first, right?
Sure,
and I honestly don't see how they do that with their current topside, because I think Armut is way better than Arome, and I think Cacao is performing much better than Shadow this tournament. And whilst I do agree with you, I actually am a big fan of Kai'Sa and Humanoid in specifics. I think that this team just doesn't look on the same place. So something needs to change for me right now if they are even going to make it into that cross-group best of 5.
They were able to instill some hope by pulling this win. You mentioned Kai'Sa, and his performance actually brought us our assist of the day presented by State Farm here, because that was some play to get themselves scrapping into this and keeping the hope alive.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? Normally I'm the analyst that sits there and talks about the big brain macro play, but even I have to sit there every now and again and just think, wow, look at the mechanics on the man. Stun locks the Camille on the wall and changes the course of this team fight. Kai'Sa saves Kazi's life and just ensures that he's able to output so much damage on the back end of this fight. That to me is a very impressive little Leona play.
That was sick. And then even later in the game, he was the one who was, the primary engage. Once they had stuffed enough of INTZ's engages, he started making his own, and it was really impressive. And Kai'Sa is probably the best performing member on Mad Lions right now, and I love seeing him on Playmakers. He's been fantastic.
And love seeing the support play overall in play-ins. We've had a lot of great moments, especially with Engage being a high priority from that lane. But one thing that we want to look forward to is what we have to look forward to going into the schedule upcoming, because we have officially ended our round robin for both of these groups, which means, hey, we're in best of 5 territory, y'all. You excited?
Yeah, of course. I can't wait to see, these 4th seeds from the major regions who are expected to get through easily have to fight for their lives through 2 best of 5s. Are you kidding me? How could you not be excited?
And I think that the teams they're going up against are also pretty dynamic. As I already mentioned, Supermassive's top side of Summoner's Rift just looks really great at the moment. And Rainbow 7 as well had stages of gameplay where it was almost kind of shocking, to see the improvement. So I think both LGD and MAD would be putting a lot into their preparations for these teams. MAD in particular, I think would be looking at Supermassive with a lot of respect, because my understanding is the Turkish teams can scrim a lot of the LEC teams, so they're probably in familiar territory. And it's one of those things, as a European representative, you're expected to not only make groups, but make a good, go of it. So MAD carry the weight of one of the biggest regions in League of Legends pressure on their shoulders at the moment.
Between those two matches, Mark, which one are you looking forward to most? LGD or Mad Lions trying to scrape in for that spot?
I mean, obviously, I'm more interested in the EU one, just the familiarity between the regions and the casting teams and all this stuff. I think there's just more personal investment for me in that one, though I do think LGD has even probably more pressure on their back. I can't imagine, actually being in China, the host region, and having their struggles so far. I think both are interesting for both reasons.
Yeah, and I think that when you have a look at LGD playing at their best, they would not expect to be in this situation. I can see a lot of the things from MAD, like, rookie players, playing away from home. It's been a crazy year all around the world. Sure, that does play through for LGD as well, but they're in their home region. They didn't have to go through a lot of the things that the teams traveling to Shanghai did. And they have a lot of veterans on the team that have been to this stage before. So you kind of don't give LGD the same kind of excuses, and therefore you expect them to be able to elevate their gameplay a little bit more rapidly. And I think the fact that they had a couple of false starts, games where you're like, okay, that's the LGD we expect to see. And then mid-game team fight happens and you're like, oh no, they still suck at the moment. Yeah. Like that to me is even more stressful than potentially just having a couple of off days of League of Legends.
No rest for the wicked either. We're going straight into the knockout portion of play-ins tomorrow. As far as what we have going down today, that does it. We'll be wrapping up things here on the Worlds Cooldown. Before we do, a special happy birthday to Raz. We've been enjoying all of your casting and performance here in Worlds and hope it has been a special day for you. But that does it for us here on the broadcast. On behalf of myself, the casters, and the entire remote broadcast crew all around the world, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow for more Worlds. Until then, good morning, afternoon, evening, and good night.
Is Raz's birthday today or